Forged from Iron is proud to support Iron Supporting Food Banks. They are a group of West Ham United fans and friends inspired by the work of other football fan food banks around the country. They collect food and cash donations from Newham Food Bank in Beckton, who supply 7 distribution centres in the borough, 7 days a week, and hand out several hundred 3-day emergency food packs every month to families in need. They are also working with other groups to improve conditions for vulnerable adults and children in the Newham community. They are supported in their efforts by West Ham United Football Club, the WHU Foundation, LS185, London Legacy Development Corporation, Newham Council, the Met Police, Spire London East Hospital, Expedient Security, and a large number of West Ham and football fans. You can help by making a donation to their Just Giving page. You will find the link to this in the description section of the video details in this stream. Thank you for your support. Come on, you Irons. Welcome to Forged from Iron, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. We are here, Duke and I. We thought we've just done our review of the game against Brentford last night that finished 2-0 to the away team. And once we finished the stream, we just carried on having a little chat, Duke and I. And I thought, you know what? We'll do a little recording and get things out there into the open, because I think it's fairly safe to say that David Moyes is under an incredible amount of pressure at the minute. 5 defeats in his last 5 Premier League games. £180 million spent in the transfer window, and it doesn't really look like any of the signings, for various reasons, have really come off. And I think there's a big clamour, Duke, for change. And I think that the first change that needs to be made, in my humble opinion, is with David Moyes himself. But I'm not unrealistic, and I think that there's a certain caliber of manager that in our position we simply cannot attract. And we've discussed it, haven't we? Obviously, there was a big clamour for Thomas Tuchel. There was a big clamour for Mauricio Pochettino in the initial stages of questions being asked of a replacement for David Moyes, which I instantly turned around and went, these are managers that are used to playing in Champions League football. They're not going to come to West Ham with regret. They're just not. And I think now that the dust is settling on where we're at, what managers we can reasonably attract, and the track record of Gold and Sullivan, really, since their tenure as West Ham co-owners, that they generally don't go for managers that are incumbents at other clubs, do they? They usually go for people that are either out of employment or on the way out of employment at their present club. So with that in mind, Duke, there's 4 names that we've sort of like batted around, and we're going to discuss with our dear viewers. So the first one I'm going to present to you, Duke, for your consideration and for you to give us, in your opinion, the pros and the cons of them individually. The first name we're going to mention is someone who has a pedigree as a Premier League manager fairly recently, although for the last 6-8 months, I think it is, maybe more, he's been out of work waiting for his phone to ring, and he's Sean Dyche. Yes.
Right, my issue there straight off the bat is, for me, anyway, I don't know how you feel. We've
Mhm.
not really discussed in length what we feel about the managers we're going to talk about.
Yep.
There were three managers that I felt were lumped into a bracket, shoehorned into a box, and that's where they lived, and that's essentially what they do. One of them was Big Sam.
Yep.
One of them was Tony Pulis.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is Sean Dyche, as far as I'm concerned. Now, that might be slightly harsh. He didn't do a bad job at Burnley, but he kind of just did a job at Burnley. It wasn't pretty. Didn't stand out. They flew under the radar every year. They weren't this outstanding special. He wasn't a special manager. Same as Pulis. And by the box that I put these guys in would be does what it says on the tin. They're basically Ronseal managers, Rob,
Mm-hmm.
and there are other Woodstainers available. Um, I would find this one very, very difficult to get excited about if this is the road we go down. I would find it very, very difficult. Yes, would he shore us up? Would he make us more? Would he solidify the back line? Would he make us kind of difficult to score against? Yes.
Mm.
Would it be attractive football? No. Would it be free flowing goal scoring football? No. Would Gianluca Scamacca become the Italian Chris Woods? Well, yeah, probably. And that's what I mean by I find it very, very difficult to get excited about. But of the four names we are going to discuss, this guy's probably top of the list as to what will happen. Not what I'd like to happen,
Yeah.
but what will happen. In fact, if you do this in the order I feel you're going to, leaving the two,
Continental.
until the end,
Hmm.
and choosing the follow up to this guy being again another recent Premier League manager. In the order that it goes, I can see that'll be the order that is the list that they will go down, which is completely opposite to the order of the list that I would go down.
Save the best
Yeah,
till last.
I mean this guy. I mean, listen, Ronseal, he does what it says on the tin. He'll come in, like I say, he'll shore us up, he'll solidify us, he'll make us hard to break down, but then it ain't going to be pretty to watch. But then I suppose neither's what we've been doing recently. So
No.
it's going to be much. I'll tell you what, it's very same old, Rob. You know, same book, different cover.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I'll say that Sean Dyche has going for him is that obviously he knows the terrain of what it takes to get a team through
Yeah,
a relegation battle. It
yeah,
should also be noted that whilst he was a Premier League manager at Burnley, working on a pretty much the smallest budget of any club in the Premier
yeah.
League at the time, by and large, he did actually manage to get a 7th place finish and get European qualification off of the back of that.
Which is
Sound
no mean
familiar?
feat.
No. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it?
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think that he does. I mean, I did listen to an interview that he did with TalkSport within about the last month from memory, where he was that was leveled at him, and he turned around and he just basically said, "Well, you know, what was I supposed to do in terms of the personnel, in terms of the money that I had, blah blah blah. I had to cut my cloth accordingly." But he turned around and he said that, I think from memory, he turned around and said that there were people that turned around and said that season that they finished 7th, that people were making the assertion that they changed the style of football, and he pointed to certain stats and facts and figures that said actually that's not the case. Would he be my first choice? No. With all due respect, he did a great job at Burnley, but I do think that would like to think anyway. I know beggars can't be choosers, and we're at the wrong end of the Premier League table, which is why we're having this discussion. But I'd like to think that a team that have got consecutive top 7 finishes in the Premier League and went out in the summer, and whether you can say that it was successful or not, we gave a manager £180 million to beef up a squad. And I'd like to think that that sort of CV, if you will, should be able to attract a manager with a little bit more clout than Sean Dyche, in all honesty. And I'm not saying that to try and demean Sean Dyche himself. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. He does, as you say, he has got saddled with a reputation, rightly or wrongly, in the same sort of envelope as a Sam Allardyce, as a Tony Pulis, as a John Beck for older viewers. Cambridge United, I remember he was the manager of, and very much a direct, in your face. Dave Bassett's another one, isn't he? At Wimbledon.
Yeah.
That sort of manager, sort of like an old school 4-4-2, get the ball into the channels, go long, rough up their centre backs, pick up the pieces, big man, little man combination up front, whatever. I could see it happening. I could absolutely see that of the managers we're going to discuss, he's probably the prime candidate in terms of Golden Sullivan. And I hear that Brady's actually a close personal friend of his,
Yes, that's
which I wonder whether that makes it more likely. Is he the guy that I would like ideally? No. The only thing I will say that in defence of Sean Dyche that makes me wonder, could he possibly be better than, in terms of his footballing style, than what we saw at Burnley, is that obviously, like I say, he did have to work within a certain budget, and he did have to cut his cloth accordingly. But this was a guy that, when he came through as a professional and the youth ranks and all that, he actually learned his trade in his formative years under a certain Brian Howard Clough, who I think it's fair to say played football the right way, a more pleasing on the eye. So whether he still has that in him to sort of to bring it out, so if he's got better players at his disposal, would he sort of like play, would he sort of hark back to his first mentor in football? I don't know. I
find it very difficult to believe he would.
I do as well.
He's set out his stall. This is what I do. It's not winning, quite clearly, but this is what I do. This is how I'm going to go about it. And let's put it this way: if you had to pick a West Ham manager, Sean Dyche isn't the one. And by that I mean West Ham philosophy, history. That side of things, Sean Dyche for me isn't on that list, and neither's. Well, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, according to Wikipedia here, the oracle that is Wikipedia, in managerial statistics, as of matches played to the 10th of April 2022, and he was relieved of his duties on the 15th of April 2022 at Burnley, he has a win percentage of 35%. He was at Watford before that, for people that are not quite sure. He was at Watford from June 21st, 2021 to 6th of July 2011, to the 6th of July 2012, and he had a win percentage there of 34.7%. His win percentage at Burnley was 35.1. It's not earth-shattering, I think.
Not. Listen, if you're not talking, I get. If you're not talking 40s and above, then there's an issue.
Yep.
Right, and by that I mean for a club like West Ham, Rob.
Yep.
Like if you're talking Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man U, Man City, Tottenham, I suppose if you have to, you've got to be talking high 40s as a win percentage to even be considered for one of those top 6. Newcastle 7 now. you've got to be you've got to have that win percentage in your wheelbarrow to be able to rock up at one of their ballrooms and go, I'd like the job. So for me, we've got to be looking 40s. We have to be, as a manager. We have to be looking at 40s. We have to be going for that kind of caliber that's not an elite manager, but still has a decent 40% win ratio.
Fair. Well, that's Sean Dyche taken care of, ladies and gentlemen. We've run the rule over him. I think the consensus from both Duke and I is, although we think that if the trigger is pulled on David Moyes, he's probably the most likely candidate. He's probably the one that we're probably both looking at and going, thanks, but no thanks. But so that takes us on to the next one. Now, I did say that we've got 4 managers to go through, and I did say that the last 2 were slightly more continental. Well, this guy is continental, actually, but he very recently was a manager of a Premier League team. So talk to me about the man that is Ralph Hasenhuttl. What are your thoughts on if he's the next incumbent?
I could have been excited
if, because you've obviously got quite a big knowledge of obviously Austrian and German Bundesliga, haven't you?
Bundesliga stuff. Listen, I could have got excited if he hadn't been bulleted by Southampton for what I would consider to be quite a shocking run of games and an awful outlay. He started quite well at Southampton, if my memory serves me. I actually did like Ralph Hasenhuttl. I've got to say I did have a kind of an interest. I mean, he was, like I say, he was at Leipzig as well before Southampton, Rob, which seems to be a theme. And I actually quite like the way that Red Bull do their models. Spoke about this in the preview of the video that we've obviously just done, and I did say that. Well, you mentioned actually that I know my Bundesliga, and he obviously came from the Red Bull setup. Hasenhuttl, like I say, he was at Leipzig. He had a half-decent playing career. He spent, his career in and around the Bundesligas as well. Austria, Vienna, Salzburg. He was actually his last playing club was what we'd call the reserves of Bayern Munich. He was actually Bayern Munich 2 is where he was. Now, obviously, with him at Leipzig. He took him to second place in the Bundesliga. And then he got out of his... Before he joined Southampton, he was relieved of his duties. Well, he wasn't. It's weird. Basically, he had to act as an interim for the incoming boss, which was Julian Nagelsmann. Right, so he asked for his contract to be torn up so Nagelsmann could come in.
Right,
and then obviously Nagelsmann, a couple of years later, went on to join Bayern Munich, which is currently where he's at now. Now, I actually, I got a lot of time for Nagelsmann. I'd love to get my hands on him. It ain't going to happen. But he's again another cracking manager who would wet my whistle, if you will. But Hasenhuttl, before he was sacked by Southampton, yes, but because of the Southampton, I won't say debacle, because he done quite well there to start with. Says to me that he doesn't quite have that tactical new long term for the Premier League. Again, not a bad manager, but I do believe the other 2 on our list would do better for me.
Okay. Well, one thing I will say that I like is right up here, and you can obviously tell me whether you agree with this is a fair assessment of Ralph Hasenhuttl, where he is likened to Jurgen Klopp in that he's a notable proponent of gegenpressing, which is obviously the tactic of after you lose possession, you're immediately trying to win the ball back rather than dropping back and into a defensive shape. You're sort of like you're straight away on the opposition, trying to win that ball back as high up the pitch as possible, which is obviously something you and I have spoken about of late. That's something that we haven't been doing at all this season. We've been letting teams, travel forwards, and we're only engaging with them when we're sort of
We're
we
quite
did a thing.
atrocious at that. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of sort of like bangs trying to win it sort of like in their half of the pitch, we're sort of letting them come onto us, and
It's
then
not
we're
what
trying
we
to have
do.
a go, and
Yeah.
it's not worked. So I will say that if that's a style of play that Ralph Hasenhuttl is aligned to, then I'm all for it as far as that's concerned. He goes on here. There's a little quotation that I'm looking at here that his basic premise of what he wants from a team is, and I'm quoting directly, he says, pressing, hunting, be hungry. When you have the ball, find a quick decision, quick transition to the front. It's all about being emotional, being full of passion. Also keep the tempo on a high level and don't slow down the game. That's what I think people want to see. Now, on the basis of that quote, Duke, and that's all it's based on. It's nothing more than that. That quote, if he can bring that to bear on a football team, and if that football team is West Ham United, I'm all for it. Because that's exactly what we haven't had this season. We've been slow, we've been pedestrian, we've been second guessing ourselves more often than not on, is this decision right? Is that decision right? If he can instill that, a sort of like a quick tempo, get at them, we lose possession high up the pitch. Soon as you've lost possession, bang, I want you to win it back. That's exactly what we need. That's exactly what we've been missing this season. Question is whether he, did he do that at Southampton? Again, was he handicapped by lack of funds? Was he handicapped by lack of, quality players? Maybe. I obviously don't know what he did as much as you do in his time in Germany and in Austria, because I don't watch those leagues routinely like you do. But I think on the basis of what I've got here, if he can sort of instill that into the team, I'm all for it. But the question is, can he?
Well, I mean, listen, what's his win percentage, Rob?
Ralph Hasenhutl's win percentage, as to matches played on the 6th of November 2022, he was relieved of his duties at Southampton the very next day, is 39.66% overall. His record at Southampton specifically was 34.10. So his overall record at Southampton is 34.10, which I think is not a million miles away from where Sean Dyche was, to be honest, at Burnley.
Yeah, listen, it does. Based on that, then it doesn't. Shut up. Based on that, it doesn't work for me.
35.1 was Sean Dyche's record at Burnley. So in actual fact, Sean Dyche's record for Burnley, although it has to be said that Sean Dyche's record at Burnley, some of that was in the Championship.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, if you want to go down that road and we talk about he comes in and he makes that the gegenpress, gen press, call it what you will. He makes that a key component. Then we get what we've wished for. As you and me, we get what we've wished for. As in, sorry, I was just looking at some bits around.
A sort of like a pattern of play, an ethos.
Yeah, we get what we've asked for, Rob. In essence, we get what we've asked for. So essentially, then what we're doing is we're getting our want, our desire. So,
Yep.
in that sense, then what you're looking at is you're kind of going, okay, maybe if we come out of the tunnel on that first, again, hypothetically, if we come out of the tunnel on his first game and we're pressing so far up the pitch that, I'm looking at it with this big grin on my face and we've not gone wrong. Do you see what I mean? But
Yeah.
I want more. I mean, he's already failed in the Premier League once. Okay. Are we talking, again, not being rude to Southampton, we're talking
Nearly
inferior?
4 years though at Southampton.
Yeah,
In
but
fairness,
are we talking inferior players? Are we talking lack of funds? What are we talking? We've got a £35 million Italian number 9. We've got a £55 million Brazilian number 10. We've got the Moroccan centre half whose national side finished fourth in the World Cup. We've
yep.
got a French World Cup winning goalkeeper and centre back, Champions League winner
Yep.
at centre back. At the moment, a regular England international, as a pain in the arse, really. But we've got those players. Did he have those at Southampton? He had James Ward-Prowse, and there you go. What else did he from me? But he had Armando Broja, didn't he? I think for a
Yep.
season. So, could be interested, but on my list probably battles it out with the next guy for my attention.
Okay. Well, the next guy of whom you speak is another manager with Premier League experience. In actual fact, in terms of the managers that we have spoken of thus far,
He won the
who
FA
have
Cup
had,
as well, Rob, did he not?
he won the FA Cup. He won the FA Cup. And very recently was a manager that was plying his trade at the World Cup, ladies and gentlemen. And if you don't know who we speak of, his name is Roberto Martinez. So Roberto Martinez, he has managed in his career Swansea City, Wigan Athletic, Everton, and the Belgian national team. So he's managed at Premier League level for Wigan and Everton, and obviously won the FA Cup. And yeah, he plays a decent brand of football. I will stick up for him there. I'll say he does try and play. I would say of the managers that we're talking about, I think if you said to me which of these managers that we're going to talk about plays the closest approximation to what you consider to be the West Ham way, then probably this is the guy that's probably going to do it. Whether he gets the results that he should get with the tools that he's provided, now that's a different story. But he would, I think, get us playing a style of football that I think a lot of old, especially the old school West Ham supporters, would be behind.
See, this is where kind of on that cusp of a yes or a no, right?
Yep.
At the World Cup, he really struggled to get the best out of the remnants of a golden generation of Belgian players. Those that probably won't be around for the next World Cup. Some of them that won't be around for the Euros. We have an aging backline. This is my fucking problem with this one. Okay, the style of play he wants to play would be amazing. The same as Hasenhuttl, and the same as this guy, not you, the guy after you. The style of play probably won't suit two of the four players that we'd pick as a back four, or even one of the three players we'd pick as a back three. because it's going to be a high press. It's going to be like you say, trying to win the ball back high up the pitch. If we were to play Dawson and Ogbonna as part of a back three or as a back four, we're in trouble. We're off of the back of that kind of press because we're going to have to sit high. They haven't got the pace to get back and come back. Whereas if we play Nathan, if we play a Gerd, he's been proven to have pace that can match Mbappe in tracking. I've seen YouTube clips of him doing exactly that and tracking Mbappe and getting close to him and winning the ball. So, that kind of press with a Gerd, Dawson or Ogbonna and Zuma would be beneficial. It would be beneficial. But the worry is that he kind of fell flat in the World Cup when coming up against stubborn teams, Rob.
Well, it has to be mentioned. He got a third place in the previous World Cup.
Yep, and that was with the younger side. I mean,
yes.
that's with a 4-year younger Eden Hazard. That's with a 4-year younger Witsel, a 4-year younger Vermaelen, Vertonghen.
They top the FIFA World Rankings. Whether you take them seriously or not is a matter of opinion.
No
but
mean
he did.
feat. But he ran out of ideas against countries that were trying something different. And by that, you just have to look at the Canada game. The Canada team played very high up the pitch. The only thing that let the Canada side down during the World Cup was their finishing, was their actual efforts in the final third. They could have spanked Belgium in that game. Belgium were lucky. Let's not dick around. But that being said, of the three managers discussed so far, he carries some real clout in a transfer window. So there's actually a young German. I'm not saying he'd come to us, but fuck mine up. He has a good relationship. He's not German. He's actually plays in Germany. He's a young Belgian player. He has a good relationship with Roberto Martinez. I'm not saying he'll come to us, but if Martinez was to use that influence over this player, he's been in England before. He was actually brought in as a comfort piece for his brother, in fact, when he went to Chelsea.
Hazard. Torgan Hazard, yeah.
Absolutely outstanding individual. Again, plays in Germany for Dortmund. Something else, Rob. Something else of a player. Will, in my opinion, if he carries on his trajectory, will probably be a better player than his brother. But he was brought into Chelsea as a let's keep Eden from being homesick. That's essentially what he was brought in for. They shipped him off out on loan at the first possible chance when Eden Hazard was comfortable. And young Torgan's gone on to be an absolute revelation. Stunning player, very quick-footed, very quick over, great acceleration.
Yeah.
Has some good pace on him. And has a good relationship with Roberto Martinez. So, as I say, Martinez has the clout within the transfers and the transfer window. That being said, didn't perform fantastically at Everton. It wasn't like this standout amazing manager. It wasn't what I'd want for West Ham. We got that with Moyes. And now look. Whereas he's still... Listen, he's still...
They did finish 5th in his first season as Everton manager, it has to be said.
But then it went downhill after that, if my
memory serves. It did. They got to the last 16 of the Europa League.
Well, we got the semi-final, so...
Yeah. But it also should be noted that he was sacked by Everton, who were 12th at the time. They had one game left of the season. They sacked him before the season finished. But they got to the semi-final with both domestic cups. But at that point, the fans would just... It was pretty much like what we've got here with David Moyes, I guess. The fans...
Your
they
phrase,
didn't like...
but your phrase there is your own.
Mm.
Your phrase, you personally,
Yep.
your phrase is your own, where you turn around and say the Premier League's your bread and butter.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, listen, he's a
I'm just putting both sides of the coin out
No,
there.
listen, he's high on my list, but he's a close run second with Ralph Hasenhuttl
Mm-hmm.
for the job. Dyche's probably about 15 furlongs back in horse racing terms. These two are close.
Yeah. Do you think
But
he's slightly hamstrung by the fact that he's not been involved in club management since 2016? Do you think that counts against him?
yeah, in the same way that my concern was that fans mentioned Joachim Löw's name.
Yeah.
He's not been involved for at least 5 years, 6 years, 5 years, 6 years.
And the rest. I think he took over as Germany manager after the World Cup
No,
in
no, no. I'm
2006,
talking
didn't he?
Martinez. Sorry, Martinez.
Oh,
5 years, 6 years. It's got to be
yeah.
six, isn't it?
Six and a bit.
Yeah. See, so he's been out of the equation for a long time now,
Hmm.
in the same way that Lowe was. So, but he has Premier League experience, Rob, and again, he has that kind of clout with younger Belgian players. But I'm not going to say that we can go out and get a Romelu Lukaku. What I'm saying is he'll know agents, he'll know players from his time as a manager, kind of at this level, which could help going forward.
Fair.
Do I believe that David Moyes has some sort of clout in the transfer window? Not in the slightest.
Probably not.
Does Rob Newman? Probably a little bit more than Moyes does, to be fair, with regards to the connections that he would have made at City. Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
listen, it's a close run thing between him and Hasenhuttl, but up next.
Well, before we go on to that, just to sort of get it out there, Roberto Martinez, his managerial stats as of the 1st of December this year, and that was the day that he lost his job as Belgian manager, is 44.2% win rate. However, I think it's fair to say, for clarity, that those figures are slightly skewed by his results as Belgian manager, because he had a 70% win rate for Belgium, but we're talking about club football, not international football, which is a different animal entirely. So, in terms of club football, he has a 40.73% win rate. His win rate at Everton, which was obviously in the Premier League, was 42.7%. His record at Wigan, which not all of that would have, that would have all been in the Premier League, excuse me, was 29.1%. Obviously, Wigan were operating a bit like we said earlier, Sean Dyche, Burnley, bit of a shoestring, silk purse sales here, that sort of job. But that's Roberto Martinez. But he did win the FA Cup against all expectations against Manchester City in 2013.
It was.
So,
and to be honest with you, Rob, 40% is where not so long ago I said we should be looking. So, again, close run thing between him and Hasenhuttl because of Hasenhuttl's style of play. The old gegenpress. It's close, but Martinez probably just edges into second because of his transfer clout, and that win percentage just pushes him in there.
One last little thing just to mention about Roberto Martinez. He's on record as citing that his influence as a managerial approach is from Johan Cruyff, who didn't do too bad, either as a player or as a manager, to be fair. Not bad.
He was all right.
But now we're going to come to the last one of the four. And this is the one that I think you're the most excited about. This is the one that I think if you was David Sullivan, David Gold, looking to say, thank you very much for your service as West Ham manager, Mr. Moyes, but it's over. I think this is probably the guy that you think we ought to be aiming for. So sell me, if you will, Duke, Domenico Tedesco?
Right. As I said in the preview, the review to the Brentford game. There's a video out there, and I'm sure if Rob has the time, inclination, and the patience,
I'll do.
He'll link it. He'll link it in the description under the video. Euro Expert does a lot of work with Gio and Gonzo over at Hammer's Chat. If you haven't already subscribed, go over. He's Euro Expert has come out and said that West Ham could do far worse than Tedesco. Tedesco has a relatively short managerial career. Started in 2017 in Germany in the Bundesliga 2, the
Championship,
second division, championship. But it also has, like Bayern Munich 2. It has like the reserve teams of these guys in as well. A bit like La Liga in Spain, where you have like Barcelona 2 and all the rest of it. So he was there, and he took over them, and they were last. They were bottom of the league. Overall, he ended up with 6 wins from 11 games, 6 wins, 2 draws, and he lost 3. They ended up finishing 14th from bottom. Now, looking at that league, if you will, it has 18 teams, right? It has 18 teams, so it's not huge.
Yep.
But that year, the teams that went down, that he stayed up, he kept them up with 39 points, of which, if my maths is great, it was 18. It's 20 points he gained from a possible 20 points from a possible 33, I think.
Okay.
Well, the teams that got relegated went down on 36, which were Munich 1860, which was the team that we beat, obviously, Cup Winners' Cup final in 65.
Yep.
And Karlsruhe, who are...
It was Slaven Bilic's old team, wasn't it?
Slaven Bilic's old team, and very much a team in the West Ham mould of old, if you will, kind of that yo-yo, up, down kind of side.
Yeah.
Used to spend a lot of time in my younger days watching Karlsruhe on telly on Channel 5, I think it was, and Sky Sports 1. So I like Karl. I've got a little bit of a soft spot for Karlsruhe, but they went down. So you had 2 teams go down that year on 34 and 36. He came in with 11 games to go. They were rock bottom of the league. He kept them up. That, for me, in his first managerial role, senior management role, that's big. That takes some doing, and that then put him that put him on the radar, and he ended up going to Schalke. He joined them in June 2017. Highlight of that was they were 4-0 down at Dortmund in his first season. They drew 4-4.
That's a bit of a derby, that, isn't it?
Yeah, and they drew 4-4. He actually got the Bundesliga Man of the Match Day of week 13. The only manager, or the first manager, to win that award. He then guided Schalke to second place in the league.
No mean feat.
Again, no mean feat when you look at Red Bull. Pretty much came in, and I think it was a little bit earlier than this, but this is where they started to come in and spend a lot of money in German football. They that year that we're talking about, 2017, Leipzig had earned their first Champions League spot the year before. by finishing runners-up in the Bundesliga for 2016-2017. So the fact that he has then taken their spot in 2017, 2018, then he's defied all odds with the amount of money that he's coming up against. You're coming up against your Dortmunds, you're coming up against your Munichs, you're coming up against your Leipzigs. There's a lot of money involved. And his style of football had people sitting up paying attention. Now, that being said, he lost some significant players in his following season. And basically, he cites that as a big problem. They lost 7-0 to Manchester City in 19 off of the back of, as he says, losing a lot of players, and they bulleted him. He got the sack. He fell out with the owners. He spoke out, which probably isn't the best thing to do in the grand scheme of things. And they turfed him out the door. He took over at Spartak
Moscow.
Yeah, around COVID, when COVID was 2020, and
yeah, he took over in October 2019.
October 19, and then you had COVID that kicked in and around February, March time of 20, wasn't it? And then everything went into lockdown. And he agreed that he weren't going to carry on because of the lockdown. He ended up spending a lot of time in Russia. He wasn't able to travel home, spend time with his family because of the pandemic. So he wanted to go home and spend time with family. So then December last year, took over at Leipzig, the team he scuppered with Schalke into second place that year. Again, he took them to their first piece of silverware. They were the team that were knocked out of the Europa League by Rangers on their way to the final.
Yes.
And they won the DFB Polka, the FA Cup.
Yeah.
I believe it is. But then after that, this season started badly, and he was sacked in September after losing 4-1 at home to Shakhtar Donetsk. Now, his name in his native Italian, Tedesco, actually means German, coincidentally. And he has a bachelor's degree in business engineering and a master's in innovation management. If there is a manager, and something that we need a manager to have, is innovation all day long. I like it, seriously. I like the way this guy thinks. I like the way he plays. I like his styles of football. He's a forward-thinking manager. I don't think I've sent you the video, Rob. I do need to send you the video.
Not that video.
Not Two Goals, One Cup. This is a video of Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough at the moment. Forward-thinking, innovative kind of manager. If you listen to the video, you can tell where Carrick is getting some of his inspirations from. We saw with the Arsenal game, not the Arsenal game, sorry, the Brentford game, that we're trying to overload down one side, and it didn't work because we didn't try and force the other players into the middle, like their defensive line into the middle or more towards the back post. Carrick's got Borough doing that down there at the minute. Tedesco plays the same sort of football. It's forward-thinking. It's the same sort of gegenpress, gen press that we were talking about Hasenhuttl earlier. He likes to play on the front foot. Yes, if you look at the sackings that he's had after the results he's had, he kind of doesn't take into consideration the teams that he's playing against when he wants to play on the front foot. So in Europe, when you're playing against seasoned veterans like Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League. Let's be honest, they qualify every year. They know how to play football in Europe, in European competitions. Man City, for instance, tried to play on the front foot against Man City with Schalke and got spanked. I remember the game. I remember watching it. It wasn't in this pub. It was in my last pub. It was 7-0. It was embarrassing. The game against Shakhtar, 4-1. He tries to play on the front foot, so it doesn't always work. It kind of doesn't... kind of takes no notice of the scouting reports that come, if you will. So playing on the front foot and trying to play high up on a team like Manchester City will get you carved open. There's no two ways about it. But I'm hoping he's only 37, Rob. He can learn, he can develop, he can probably, if he with the right coaching team around him, will understand kind of that nuanced part of the management that you can't always go all out and you'll end up getting absolutely smashed off the park. But then the other concern there is if he does come in January, he's already thrown his toys out of his pram a couple of times because of saying things that he shouldn't do against the board because players have been sold. If he comes in and he sees Declan Rice sitting at the heart of our team, and then we go and flog Declan Rice at the end of next season, which we all know is coming, but he's likely to be one to open his trap and say something.
But then if he's told at the outset, look...
Then that's a different story. Yeah, I agree with you there.
He's off ski,
For me, his age... I mean, listen, we hired Pellegrini when he was, I think, 1 foot in the grave is the best phrase for it.
We took him out of retirement, didn't we?
Moyes
out of the retirement home.
I mean, how old's Moyes now? Moyes
59.
59, so he's come up on 60. The game's changed since these guys first stepped into management. The game has changed massively since these guys first stepped into management. And unfortunately, it's not... You look at Harold's Klopp. Give me Klopp's age, please.
Oh, I think he's going to be in his 40s, isn't he?
Got to be late 40s, possibly late 40s, early 50s.
Jurgen Klopp is 55. Oh, I'm surprised. He's only 4 years younger than Moyes.
So 55. Okay. He's actually a lot older than I thought he was.
Yeah.
Pep's 51, which surprises me. I thought he was a lot younger.
Yeah.
But when you look at the money that these guys have got and the fact that they have the ability to change and roll with the punches, Rob, both managers, it is a younger man's game now, this whole side of football. My younger brother, he did the analysis for the Brentford game on our Twitter page, and I used some of it last night or in the video. It's a younger man's game. My brother's been in management. He's 30. And I'd like at 37 years old, Tedesco could be a West Ham manager for 15 years if things go right.
Does it concern you, though, that of the managers we've discussed thus far, he's the one that has no Premier League experience whatsoever? And I appreciate he can speak English. I don't know to what... how good his English is.
Neither did Klopp. Neither did Pep. Neither did Alex Ferguson when he came out from Scotland.
Yeah, but then I would suggest that they also had a volume of work at a level over a longer tenure of time than this guy.
So what makes you experienced enough to do the job in England? Getting experience in England would do so.
True.
And for me... you can't get experience without doing the job. So,
someone needs to give you the opportunity, don't they?
The fact that he hasn't managed in England shouldn't go against him. The fact that he hasn't managed, shall we say, for a length of time. He's had, 4 clubs, have we said?
Well, I've got it here.
He's had 4 clubs because he's had... He had...
I can't pronounce that first one, but Schalke, Spartak Moscow and Leipzig.
Erzberige, Schalke, Moscow, and Leipzig. So he's had 4 clubs in essentially 5 years.
Yeah, 48.31% win rate, which is very impressive. Leipzig, his last club, he managed to produce a 52.63%
So
win rate.
52% there, 50% at Spartak,
Yeah.
44 at Schalke. Now, as we've already discussed, 2019 was when he left. 2017 was when he took over, right? 2017 when he took over, Dortmund, Munich, and Leipzig were already forces in that league. Okay. The year before he took over, Leipzig, or the year before, in fact, I think it was the year before he left, Leipzig had already qualified for the Champions League, right? He then stopped them from doing so, right? He stopped them from doing so again by finishing second in that league. So basically, out of three teams, only one of them finished above him in the league, which probably would have been Bayern Munich. He's played 73 games, 75 games with Schalke. They scored 102 goals, Rob. Leipzig, 38 games, 84 goals. Spartak, 54 games, 89 goals. We've only scored 12 goals this season.
Not exactly hot shots, are we?
Ivan Toney has 11 on his own.
Oh.
Right? So this guy, like I say, does like to play on the front foot. The proof there is, you know, he's almost it's more than two a game in most of his tenures, you know, or almost two a game. You know, even at that Esberige, where he kept him up and he was only there for 11 games, Rob. He scored 14 goals in 11 games. They lost 3, but they won 6. Scored 14. All right, they conceded 10, but obviously they had a fucking problem because they were bottom of the league for a reason. Schalke, okay, only ended up with a goal difference of +4, but he played front foot football and finished second in the league. Moscow ended up with a goal difference of +25, and Leipzig ends up with a goal difference of +38. And before people start jumping on the bandwagon of he probably had a younger backline, okay, yeah, probably, but he's got Italian's number 9.
It couldn't be any older than what we've got at the minute.
No, but he's got Italy's number 9. He's got Brazil's number 10. You know, he's got like I said earlier, a French World Cup winner. Two of them, in fact. He's got a Champions League winner. He's got a key England international for as long as we can keep him. He's got some real talent in that side, especially going forward. So, for me, Tedesco's number 1. Martinez is number 2. Very close run between him and Hasenhuttl. And Dyche is... I can't see him. He's that far back for me. Is that... No, that's not even him. That's... Oh, no, he's fell over. That's a vulture feeding off of his carcass. He's that far back in the race. He's no.
You're not sold on Sean Dyche. So if he's going to be our next manager, though, isn't he?
You know it. You know it because I have no input, right? You know it's going to happen. But for me, Rob. I mean, that's where I'm at. We've done the aging managers now, and we have done for some years. You know, Avram Grant was an aging manager when we got our hands on him. The only one that probably wasn't was Bilic. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, you're looking at Moyes is nearly 60. You know, let's look at some fresh blood. As Gonzo has said on Hammer's Chat on the last few videos that I've watched, which I have done because I put my headset in while I'm downstairs cleaning. Moyes must be looking at these other managers around him, these younger managers, these young hotshots, as Gonzo called them, the likes of Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe's still young. I mean, he looks better than me. He's still a young man in the grand scheme of football management, yet he's got Newcastle playing some amazing football. All right, he's got no prima donnas in there yet, no egos to deal with, and let's see how quickly he ages when when the Saudi Arabian government go out and buy, 6 or 7 prima donnas for him.
He won't be there then.
Listen, if he's not, then I'll take him, because I think he's an outstanding young manager. But right now, for me, Tedesco now, right?
Yep.
And this is how I'd love to see this pan out. Tedesco now, we have issues with him in about 3 years' time because we sell someone that he doesn't like. He traps off, he gets the sack. We bring in Michael Carrick. Cheers.
Fair. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this little opinion piece. Four managers that we think really. I mean, listen, we could have sat here and we could have run the rule over Thomas Tuchel. We could have run the rule over Mauricio Pochettino. I think a little bit of realism is required. Yes, listen, managers that I'd be quite happy with, managers that I'm sure Duke would be quite happy with, but realistically, these are managers that would be demanding Champions League football season on season. We're not operating at that level. So realistically, we've got to set our sights a little bit lower down the pecking order. So although they're very good managers in their own right, I don't think it's realistic to suggest them in connection to what I suspect will be a hot seat that is going to be vacated fairly soon, I suspect, unless, of course, results take a dramatic turn for the better, which obviously we all hope does happen. But I'm sensing you don't think he's going to.
No, I mean, listen. Again, I'm going to say something that I haven't done on a couple of other videos. I want to say thank you to David Moyes for what he has done.
Yep.
Let's not mess around. We've gone from a relegation battled side when he came back. I think we stayed up against Villa. We were up before Villa. Villa stayed up on us.
I think we secured it. We pretty much secured it in the 3-1 win over Watford.
Yeah.
We then cemented it with a point away at Manchester United.
And then Villa came to the London Stadium and they got a point that they stayed up, wasn't it? Yeah. So he took us from there to a team that finished 6th in the league, Rob.
Yep.
A team that qualified for Europe.
Mm-hmm.
He then took that team and he made it a European tournament semi-finalists, Europa League. We beat the perennial winners of said tournament during the run to that semi-final. We had a fantastic game away at Lyon in the next round, I think that was.
Yeah.
And bar a bit of bad decision making, we were still in the semi-final up until probably about 4 minutes in Germany. We then finished 7th last season on the back of a semi-final in Europe. We then qualify again for European football, which hasn't happened for forever in our club, through league positions that we've qualified twice for Europe. Once again, we're in the last 16. Okay, it's not quite the tournament that last year's was, but it's still a European tournament. It still carries a trophy. It still carries a way into Europe next season that we no longer have in the league. I want to put on record that I am saying thank you to David Moyes for what he's given us for the last, I'll say for 18 months. This last calendar year hasn't been good.
I agree.
It's not been the greatest, but we still got to a semi-final. We still qualify for Europe, despite the fact that the football this calendar year hasn't been great. But on the back of saying thank you, I'm also saying you're running the risk of ruining all the hard work that you've put in. And fans have already started to turn to hatred for David Moyes.
I think he risks, with every game that goes past and every defeat that goes past as well, I think that he does tarnish his legacy. And
I will never hate David Moyes, because David Moyes has honestly given me, and I was alive for the boys of '86. I was there when Sam Allardyce brought 4 new teams in, like Forest did this year. to compete in Europe and get knocked out 2 years on the group. I was there for the Intertoto Cup when I was there when we lost to Palermo. But Moyes has given me 2 of the best years as a West Ham supporter that I could have wished for without winning a trophy.
Yep.
So I'm never going to end up hating him. But there's disdain right now, the fact that he can't see what's going wrong.
Yeah.
But on record, my thanks to him for those 2 good seasons as a West Ham fan that he's given us. I will say that.
Yeah, fair.
I don't want it to end like this. I really don't. But as you said earlier, bar some sort of miraculous upturn in results and everything else, which I can't see, it's pretty much time to go.
Fair. On that, we shall leave it, Duke. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for you guys that have ploughed through this and heard our opinions for and against on the 4 managers that we realistically think are in the frame to replace David Moyes, should he be relieved of his duties. And we've gone from started at Sean Dyche, we then moved on to Ralph Hasenhuttl, we then went on to Roberto Martinez, and we finished with Domenico Tedesco. We've obviously given you our thoughts, our observations, and we'd really like to know what you think. So you've got a comment section below. Please get stuck into it, get involved. Or is there another manager that you think realistically we could attract? And I emphasize the word realistically, guys. Try and keep a little bit of a sense of realism about it. We're not going to attract Pep Guardiola, I'm afraid, but we can try and sort of like see what we can come up with. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching us. Stay safe. Have a great new year. Come on, you Irons, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Forged from Iron is proud to support Iron Supporting Food Banks. They are a group of West Ham United fans and friends inspired by the work of other football fan food banks around the country. They collect food and cash donations from Newham Food Bank in Beckton, who supply 7 distribution centres in the borough, 7 days a week, and hand out several hundred 3-day emergency food packs every month to families in need. They are also working with other groups to improve conditions for vulnerable adults and children in the Newham community. They are supported in their efforts by West Ham United Football Club, the WHU Foundation, LS185, London Legacy Development Corporation, Newham Council, the Met Police, Spire London East Hospital, Expedient Security, and a large number of West Ham and football fans. You can help by making a donation to their Just Giving page. You will find the link to this in the description section of the video details in this stream. Thank you for your support. Come on, you Irons.